Hi friends, welcome back to Mule 4 series of learning videos. I am siva.thankamanee, an integration technical architect. In the last couple of videos, we have seen architecture and design phases in detail, and I've also tried to explain the detailed steps to be done and the outcome of every step in both the architecture and design phases. So in the design phases, while we create a specific API to achieve a specific feature, we have also seen it's very important to create an error handling framework that will be helpful a lot during the development and testing phases. So I thought I could publish a series of videos on how to build error handling framework. So we cannot do it in one single video because building an error handling framework is a big task, because that could be the foundation for the whole development and testing phases. So one part of the error handling framework, we are going to achieve it today. I would like to show one interesting saying that says, give me 10 hours to chop down a tree. I will spend first 9 sharpening the axe. So this statement will fit well in this IT world, where particularly while you are designing the error handling framework. So in general, this is how we spend the time while building the API. So we spend analysis, design, development, and validation in the proportion of 10%, 40%, 30%, and 20%. So you can see here design phase occupies a major amount of work. This because a lot of planning and a lot of initial framework development will be done in the design phase. That will make the development and validation phase so easy. While building the API or APIs, normally we make a lot of calls to the external web services, or sometimes we call internal web services as well. So at the time, my team members mostly ask, Shiva, we are not getting any errors from the web service, and the service always works fine. But I used to tell them that we need to test for all the negative cases. In particular, the web services can behave in different ways. So it can give a series of HTTP error codes in a different way at different times based on the web service availability. So it might give 200 OK, it might give 202 accepted, it might give 400, 500. Based on the situation and the results, the web service normally results in different HTTP error status code or success status code. Success status code always is easy to achieve when we give some valid data, but it's difficult to get communication errors, something like 500 HTTP error status code. So it's our responsibility as a team lead or architect to come up with a plan and action about how to simulate those error scenarios so that developers can think about it and can develop the API that could respond properly for all different HTTP error scenarios. In this video, we are going to see about how we can prepare the error handling framework. And before preparing this error handling framework, how to set the foundation for preparing all those such error scenarios. So in this video, I'm going to give a demo on preparing the set of services and deploy it in the API as a ready-made accessible service, which will instantly give us these error code and error messages that we can simulate in our APIs. Let's get started. So I have created a simple Mule4 flow, and I have introduced a HTTP listener, which acts like a mock service that will give us some error response. That's what we are going to do. So we have 3 different HTTP resource path. It's the same HTTP listener, but I introduced 3 different resource path. And in those 3 different resource paths, I'm going to simulate error 500, error 400, and error 401. So you need to know about before you start designing this error handling framework based on your ecosystem integration systems that you are going to develop for the next 1 year. And also you will be focusing on the designing the specific API. So you need to think about what the error scenarios are applicable for that particular API. Maybe you would be making different calls in the same API, one calling the database and one calling the Salesforce and another one calling different systems. So for all those, there are some specific error code possible, but that you need to know the different HTTP error codes applicable for your project and for your specific use case scenario. But now I'm going to explain these three different one, and I'll also be creating a new one to give you the demo. But I'm going to explain the basic principles of how to prepare ourselves this error status code response. So here we have a simple HTTP listener, and let me show how the HTTP listener looks like. Let me double click. So it's very simple one. We opened it with a port 8081, and we have a simple set payload, and I'm choosing the appropriate error message for those errors. Say 500 is a communication error. Say it happens when we try to access the web service, and web service could not respond back, and it leads to 500. It's a service unavailable, or service interrupted while we are trying to invoke that API or web service. So I'm simulating this with a system not reachable, and please try after a few minutes. So I'm trying to, this is all mock responses, so we are preparing something that's close to the reality. And so how to simulate this? In Mule4 it's very simple. You can just double click it. You can click on the responses. Let me expand this. So under the responses, I am giving the status code 500, and so that will simulate the error response code 500. It's that simple. And appropriate message can be given in the form of JSON message under the value. And we should not forget about setting the MIME type to appropriate, either it could be JSON or it could be XML. And while preparing the API, you need to have these set of error response messages and error response code for all your response scenarios, whether it could be XML based or it could be JSON based. We need to prepare all these without fail. So this is very simple, and I'm opening this next one. This is error 400 simulation, so I'm having the resource path as /error/400, and the payload here is it contains, the input contains invalid data. Please correct and submit again. So for that I followed the same thing. Click on this HTTP listener, go to the responses, and if you scroll down you can see this error code, and error code you can set it as 500. It's that simple. And in the same way I'm giving 401. Hopefully you're familiar with the 401. It's unauthorized error code where it says credentials are invalid. Please provide the valid username and password. So right now I have come up with these three error codes, but you have various error codes that could be applicable for your project, that you need to do it on the same way. If you want to get familiar yourself with the different HTTP error codes, you can go to the Wikipedia site, and there you have different error codes like 2xx success, 3xx redirection, 4xx client errors, 5xx server errors. So let's choose one of the server errors, and then let's choose 415 unsupported media type. So we will see how to create it quickly. So let's drag and drop HTTP listener, and it's automatically chosen. So I'm choosing /error /415, and go to the responses. Go to the responses and then set status code 415, and we need to set the payload here. Let me copy it from here. So this is unsupported media type. Unsupported media type would mean that for JSON format, user is trying to give it in XML, so which is inappropriate. So that's it. And MIME type, we need to choose it as JSON, because JSON is the format. And here under HTTP listener also there is a MIME type, for which also you need to choose this JSON, because this payload is propagated back with a appropriate error code by this HTTP listener component. So that's it. So it's restarted. Now let's go and check the response. See, I have given here in the Postman with the URL /error/415, and I'm selecting it. And you can see here the status comes as failure, message is given whatever we have as set as a payload. But more importantly, you can see here it's simulated 415 unsupported media type. So what you can do is you can extensively create all the error codes that are appropriate to your project. Maybe it's for you or for your team. Maybe it's going to be used for the current API development or in future. So we can spend one API for this purpose with the entire list of HTTP error codes. So that's going to be used throughout the project for all your error handling. So I'm going to deploy this in the Cloud Hub, which I have already done. You can see here it's deployed successfully into the Cloud Hub. So let's go back to the Cloud Hub, and then I'm going to copy the Cloud Hub URL, and I'm going to go back to the Postman tool, and instead of this localhost, we will use this, and then we will choose 400. Now you can see here 400 bad request responses coming as expected. So now once you deploy this into the Cloud Hub, this can serve and save a lot of time. So what you need to do is whenever your API is invoking the external API or any other web service, let it succeed and it will come to the next component. So what you do is before you do the actual code commit and do the deployment, introduce this small this HTTP invocation and try to run it in your local machine while you are unit testing, and it will result and it will show you I mean, if you have designed the error handling framework appropriately, by after introducing this, if you try to run it, you will see how the system is going to respond. So sometimes you can try with all the possible error combinations like 400, 401, 500 and 415, and you may, while you are testing, sometimes you might see the service response with blank without any response. Then you might understand that there is a leakage or something broken in your error handling, where you can go and fix it. So it's very important, and normally such scenarios will be realized only after the entire API development testing is completed and it goes to the production. And once it goes to the production system, and it's going to be very difficult to revert all these errors, correct it, and then put the production fix. So to avoid all that, let's sit together and then prepare this one API with all combinations of error response. Carefully think the error JSON response properly so that it can be used throughout your project. Now let's take a look at how this error service response can be used in our unit testing. So I have created a new flow which simply invokes a REST API which is publicly available. So I have taken this dummy REST API call, which is publicly available. You may also try to use this. So where this gives a JSON output with employee ID and employee name and other details. So we are going to invoke this particular URL in our API, and we are going to see how we are going to unit test for different scenarios. But when I invoking this API, this never gives error response, because this service is always up and available, but we don't know when this service might go down. So we are going to simulate it while we are doing the unit testing. So we can only commit the code only after, as a unit tester, after testing the entire set of combinations of scenarios. Only then I can do the code commit and finalize it. So this is the HTTP invocation, where I've given the details of this dummy REST service example invocation, and it's a get method. And so this is for success scenario. We haven't done any error scenario. And so we are going to run this. So when I run this, I'm getting the same JSON response successfully as expected. So now we are not able to simulate the scenario how the error will occur, because right now when we do the unit testing, the service is working fine. So now what we are going to do is we are going to go back and then take the service which we have tested already, and we are going to use this, because this is a service that we deployed that could simulate the error response with the 400 bad request. So this is what we are going to it's ideal to choose 500. Let's do that. So 500 is a system not reachable error. Let's do this. This is the ideal scenario, negative scenario for our case. So what I'm going to do is, so I'm going to do another HTTP request, and this time we are going to use our service, and here we are going to give this host name which we have just deployed, give OK, and then I'm going to give the same path, relative path here, which says /error/500. So the service is restarted. Now let's go back and see the outcome. So let's go back. So this is our invoke service. Now you can see here, this proves that our development work is incomplete, because when 500 server error happened, as you know, as we have not handled the error scenario yet, so it gives some raw response here. It says HTTP get on the resource failed, internal server error 500. So this is the scenario that we talked about, where we will be missing out one of the code where the response is coming without any proper JSON response. So which will break the system that's going to call our API badly, and then they might not know what's happening, and then sometimes this will crash their system, and this will lead to multiple problem that will get bubbled up all the way to the caller. So we need to avoid this, and then we have already seen how to do the error handling. So you can introduce here error handling accordingly, and we can, for the argument purpose, I want to complete this and then show it to you. So now in this situation we have handled it. So I have given on error continue, and then I have given the set payload that says error occurred, please try again after a few minutes. So what we should not do is to give whatever error message coming from the calling API and then give it back. So but it's always better sometimes to suppress the error message that we receive from the actual API, because it might contain some unwanted information that you want to restrict, and you want to make it simple to the caller that says error occurred, please try again after some times, because you don't want to throw the entire error message shown by the actual API, but you want to keep it simple, because this error message will go as a success message. So after the set payload, now we have handled the error, we corrected our mistakes now, and now the development is complete. Now let's go back and then see how the API responds back. So I have already tested it. So now it says it's 200 OK, although the resultant service is failed. It says status occurred, please try again after a few minutes. Now we know for sure when the API is happening with a situation of communication failure, for sure our API will work 100% as expected. So I'll be creating series of videos this week on what are the different steps that we need to do to design a complete error handling framework that can be used for the entire API creation for the next 1 or 2 years in your project, because these are the things that are done only once and time well spent. And whenever you are in a crunch time, you create 10-15 projects in a critical time, you can just start reusing and start enjoying the benefit of having this error handling framework readily available. So that's it in this video, and please look for my further videos in this week on a daily basis. And if you like this, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe my videos, and soon I will come up with the next set of videos. Again, thanks for watching. Bye.